Assalamu alaikum. One of the questions I get asked is, how on earth could we have been so wrong about some of the core practices or some of the core terminology that appears in the Quran? Like, for example, the Salah, which I have not only shown my own research, but research of a number of contemporary scholars, that if you really do an analysis of the word Salah, it cannot lead you to a ritual practice. Now, I'm not denying the practice of a daily ritual regime where you worship and read the Quran. I mean, I do it. I find it to be something that is uplifting, stimulating, and the meditation part of it, I find it to be very positive. But certainly, I cannot any longer uphold from the Quran the position that that is the be and end all of what Salah is all about. And the question that some of you come up with is that how could we have been so wrong? It can't be. There has to be some semblance of truth. It is an ongoing tradition. One of the positions that I hear is that, certainly from the time of the Prophet until now, there's been an ongoing community of practice, and that practice was inherited. It can't come from nowhere. And so the Salah, it has to be grounded. It is, maybe we can't find a hadith that spells it out in detail. Yes, maybe, but the practice has to go back. And I also think these things, and I also worry about it. And why are we here? We are here to explore and to, in an epistemic way, in a defensible way, and in a way that relies on hard evidence. We are here seeking to put together an understanding, and with that understanding comes a practice, a best practice that matches that understanding. And the understanding we are seeking is an interpretation of the will of our Creator. And you and I, we have consensus that the Quran constitutes an unquestionable authority in terms of what the will of that Creator is. So, how could we have been so wrong? You see, I can't tell you not to believe the way you want to believe, but I can give you the evidence. I can tell you what the evidence, how the evidence is. And I have the time, you see, with the grace of the Almighty, I have the time to go and dig for the evidence. You might not have it. You might be in a full-time job. You might have a few hours a day left. I have more time available. And so I'm able to dig. And I have been digging almost my entire life for understanding. And by the way, the word digging in the Quran means research. I don't know if you know that. Or in Arabic, the word digging actually means research, bahth. And so I've been doing the research, I've been digging, and I've been trying to find proofs for the things that I am asserting and claiming here. But let me get to the point. There's a verse here from the Quran that I just want to show you firstly before I continue. And this verse, you see a lot, coming to the point, a lot of what is going on in your mind when your mind is rebelling against a particular conceptualization or a particular understanding. It is because there is a part of you that is rebelling against that understanding. That's perfectly reasonable. As human beings, we do that. We call it, in the education field, we call it troublesome knowledge or threshold knowledge. It's knowledge that is not, you are not ready to adopt it, to accept it. Now, I'm not talking about nonsense. I'm talking about knowledge, real knowledge. And by the way, flat earthism is not knowledge. So I'm not just selling you the latest conspiracy or the latest thrilling new theory that no, we're not here to play games. We're here using hardcore evidence. We're here to do scholarship, and we're here to arrive at proper knowledge. But some of that proper healthy knowledge is sometimes very difficult, right? Some of that is extremely difficult to process and to assimilate. Now, the type of what you and I have always used as a sort of a reinforcement for our existing understanding is that the Muslim Ummah is different from previous Ummahs. You see, and we use those terminology also. The Ummah of Islam. This is an invented term. The word Ummah is in the Qur'an, but the idea of a Muslim Ummah, Ummatul Islam, or the Ummatul Arabiya, and these are not terms that appear in the Qur'an, right? So, but just we have always assumed that the Muslim Ummah, and I'll go with that quickly with that term, is somehow immune from going astray. That is at the root of why we have difficulty correcting some of our beliefs, because we deep within our hearts we feel that we as the Ahli Sunnah wal Jama'ah, or we as the Ithna Ashari Shia, or we as the Zaydiyah, or whoever you are in your mazhab, you are the chosen one of the 72 sects. And that is I think, the most important or the strongest rebelling force or enforcer of your traditional beliefs. You cling to it subconsciously or consciously. I speak for myself when I say that subconscious thought was always there in my life, that certainly we cannot go the same route as previous nations, like for example the Christians. And then, it's an article of faith for us. We actually maintain that we are the chosen. We are not going to go astray in any major way. Our Sahabi are the best. Our Prophet's wives are the best. Our Tabi'een are the best. We are the best Ummah, and on the Day of Judgment we will be the people that will be saved. Now that is really, am I right or am I wrong? I think I'm not making this up, right? This is the type of understanding that we've been programmed with. But I'm going to give you a shock today. It's a complete and utter fallacy. It's a complete and utter myth. There's no basis in the Qur'an for stating or for arguing that our Sahabi are the best, our Tabi'een are the best, our scholars are the best, and we cannot go astray. There's absolutely no basis in the Qur'an. In fact, the Qur'an states the contrary, and that's why I want to show you this verse now. The Qur'an states the exact contrary. And what this verse says, and I've come up to chapter 5, Surah Ma'idah, verse 41 in my translation work, and I'm not working to complete the Quran. I'm understanding and studying the Quran. And yesterday I arrived at this verse, and I just want to show you this verse, and you can see with me that we are not absolved, we are not immune to going astray. Now, this was at the time of the Prophet, at the time of the Prophet, right? And let me just quickly read the Arabic. Let me move that a bit. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم يا أيها الرسول لا يحزنك الذين يسارعون في الكفر من الذين قالوا آمنا بأفواههم ولم تؤمن قلوبهم وَمِنَ الَّذِينَ هَادُوا. And let me just quickly get to the Arabic then. And the Arabic reads, I'm going to read the Arabic. Heed this, dear messenger. Never be in despair over those who are most toxic in their subversion. Now here comes the key point. Be they of those who verbally embrace you with hostile motives, or be they Jews. Those people who eagerly entertain lies from others without checking with you. those who shift words away from the intended meaning after being spoken, they state, whatever idea corresponds with what we already possess, accept, and whatever you do not already possess, stay away from. Whoever God intends to put to the test, you have no way of granting him absolution from God. Such are men whom God has no desire to redeem. They will remain a disgrace on earth, and in the life hereafter, they will meet with a supreme punishment. Discussion. It's an intense verse. It's a voluminous verse. It says a lot. But let me unpack it for you quickly. And I'm just going to draw 1 or 2 or 3 points out of it. Number one, those who oppose truth could be from the ranks of those who believe in the Prophet Muhammad. Never be they of those who verbally embrace you with hostile motives. So there are those who are Muslim, who says Muhammadur Rasulullah. It says here, it says it. I'm not making this up. Read the Arabic with me. It says here, وَلَمْ مِنَ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا آمَنَّا. Those who say we believe. بِأَفْوَاهِهِمْ. They make a verbal claim to being Muslim, to believing, to accepting the Prophet. وَلَمْ تُؤْمِنْ قُلُوبُهُمْ. But their hearts, in their real mind, in their hearts, they do not believe. They hold sinister agendas and motives. And so you cannot but, if you read this verse, and there are verses similar to it, you cannot but come to the conclusion that the Muslim is not any different to the Jew, to the Christian, whatever. We are not immune to being corrupted, my brothers and sisters. We are not immune to being corrupted. And the sooner you accept that, if you don't accept anything else today, accept this, that we are corruptible. As an individual, as a nation, as a global community, we are corruptible. Now you, as a Muslim, run around and you tell Christians you've reached consensus on a falsity, like the Trinity. You run around and you blame and you tell the Jews. Well, I wouldn't state it like that. I would say we affirm, and the Qur'an affirms, that the Christian people, the Nasara and the Yahud, have actually gone astray on major key points. And we accept that. It's a given fact. Not only does the Quran state it, but we assume that in our practice as Muslims, is that we cannot really depend on the practice of these other nations. But now, when there are those of us today who have done a pure study of the Quran only, without the intrusion or the involvement of unreliable, unsubstantiated, unauthorized sources, you feel worried that we might be wrong. It's almost like I don't feel comfortable with the Quran only. I don't feel comfortable abandoning the hadiths. I feel more at home using the hadiths and then reading the Quran based on the hadiths. And that is the worry that you have. You see, you cannot read that book without the hadiths. And this book at no point does it invoke or require you to read it with any but an honest, sincere perspective, without the involvement of any other thing. Let me just show you another verse from the Quran where Allah speaks about these other nations, and you can see with me. Have a look at this beautiful verse now. This verse speaks about Bani Israel, and it speaks about them forgetting major parts. Now I want you to, when I'm speaking to you with the ideas that we've been addressing on this channel and on similar channels where they address the same ideas. Look at this verse also, which I've recently just been able to translate. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم فبما نقضهم. Let me just read the English quickly to save a bit of time. It is on account of their breach of this covenant that we condemned them, this is Bani Israel, and hardened their attitudes. They went on to shift words away from their intended meaning and so became unconscious of much of what they were enlightened with. And so became unconscious of much of what they were enlightened with. The Arabic is وَالنَّاسُ حَظًّا مِمَّا ذُكِّرُوا بِهِ. وَالنَّاسُ حَظًّا مِمَّا ذُكِّرْ بِهِ. They became unconscious of much of what they were enlightened with. You see, and then you will notice how they continuously perpetuate their deception, except for a small number of them. What does this verse say? This is so loud and clear to me. I hope you also see the penny can drop for you. Is that this verse addresses Bani Israel and the Jews as we know it, and it tells us that these are a people who broke the covenant. These are a people who buried part of the message. And in fact, the word here is وَالنَّاسُ حَظًّا مِمَّا ذُكِّرُوا بِهِ. They became unconscious of a large part of what they were enlightened with. So this enlightenment that they received from their prophet, they become unconscious of it. And today, what the claims that we are making is that the Muslims have become unconscious. They went and became unconscious. We are arguing that the Muslims also became unconscious of a large part of the original enlightenment brought by Sayyidina Muhammad alayhi salam. We do advance that argument here, and you tell me, how can we not be worried that that has not happened? For example, the Salah. That Salah is in fact the implementation of an order, the religious or the Quranic order, an order of practice, an order of governance, and a social structure. That is what Ibrahim was commanded with. That is what we are commanded with, is to establish, even in embryo, even at the small level, an order of the Qur'an, an order of practice, a social order. And that is one of the aspects of the Qur'an that we've become unconscious of. There's another one. Look at this one. وَمِنَ الَّذِينَ قَالُوا إِنَّا نَصَّارَى. As for those who pride themselves in being Nazarenes, now, not translated Nasara as Christians, just to be faithful to the language. The Quran doesn't use the word Masihiyun, it uses the word Nasara, which translates as Nazarenes. Okay, but let's assume these are the Christians in any case. Their oath did we also receive, but then they too became unconscious of much of what they were enlightened with. Same story. They became unconscious of a large part of the message of the prophet, of the messenger of God. So I come back to my original point, is that you and I've managed to overcome it. Maybe some of you still have that what we call troublesome knowledge, or that threshold, or that difficulty in assimilating that there are major parts of the enlightenment of Muhammad alayhi salam that is missing. And that is the argument that we are presenting to you. There are major parts of the enlightenment, of the message, of the dhikr of Muhammad that is missing. It is still in the Qur'an. It is still in the Qur'an. But as I have read to you earlier, they went on to shift the words. The words of the Qur'an is being manipulated. The meaning. They went on to shift words away from the intended meaning. And I'm not making that up. That is the Qur'an. It says, يحرفون الكلمة عن مواضعه. The meaning, the place, the right sense, they shifted it away from what it should mean. And that is the assertion here, directly from the Qur'an, and I'm showing you, is that large chunks of our enlightenment, our religious, our spiritual, our political, social enlightenment, as gifted to us by the Creator, has gone forgotten. We have gone unconscious about these things. And myself, and many other scholars, if you care to search the internet, are there to remind you of those forgotten elements. Inshallah, let us pray and hope. We are not perfect. We are making the effort. Tell us, but you can't tell me that Salah is a ritual practice because there's 500 hadiths that say so. Abu Hurairah and this one and that one said it. They are not my prophet, my friends. They are not my prophet. They are not my messenger. My messenger is Muhammad alayhi salam. They have not been appointed as they are not Al-Amin. They are not As-Sadiq. They are not Al-Mustafa. Abu Hurairah is not Al-Mustafa. He is not Al-Amin. He is not As-Sadiq. He's just a common guy who could tell lies and steal also if he could have a chance. He was accused of stealing. So we have only this book, and that is what I'm calling you to. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.